Hey guys, welcome to Bethesda Gaming Saga. I'm Steve-O.
And I'm Elder the Noble. This is our journey into some of gaming's most ambitious, impressive games ever made.
All right, guys, what's up? Welcome aboard. And as you can tell, something's a little different, at least if you're watching
Ta-da!
on YouTube. We are on video now. Not only will you get our glorious voices on audio, but you'll have our beautiful faces too. So, in this episode, and of course, Starfield just releasing yesterday, as of the time of this recording, we're going to be talking about our initial experiences and, of course, other things. But first of all, we got to give a big shout out to our Patreon supporter, Falcor. Without you and all the other people that definitely support us on our social medias, we can't do this without you, but especially you, Falcor. You are greatly appreciated, sir. I hope you know that.
Yes, thank you so much, Falcor. Like you said, we greatly appreciate it. So it is important to note that both Steve-O and mine we experienced Starfield on PC. So this comes from a place on PC, not Xbox. Now I played with mouse and keyboard with a 3060 Ti and a Ryzen 5 5600X, and Steve-O played with a controller on PC and a 4070 Ti and a Ryzen 9 7900. So our when we talk about our experiences, they come from being on PC. Those are our tech specs. And so these are our initial thoughts. Steve-O, why don't you open us up?
Yep. First of all, gotta give a shout out to my controller people out there. I know you guys are deep hardcore fans. I love my PC, but man, I can't. I gotta keep that controller. But yeah, initial thoughts. So obviously, we're early on. We're only literally just about 12 hours from the time the game released for early access. A little bit, well, about 13 hours, 14 hours now. But so both Elton and I were jumped on right at 8 p.m. Eastern our time. That's when it was released, and my initial thoughts, and I'll say this bearing that I did watch and read a ton of reviews from gaming companies or people who had the 2-week embargo access, but I never go when reviews when I think of my own. I don't let them weigh on me. Like if someone says something's good or bad, I don't go into that gameplay. And I know you're the same way, Eldon, thinking
Yep,
that okay,
100%.
it's going to be, oh, I already have this in mind. So when I go in, naturally, BGS fan, Elle and I both are huge. So I have some expectations. And based on what we've seen, I kind of knew what that whole first hour was going to be like. I really did. And as
Right,
it progressed, I'm like, oh, yep, I saw that. Knew what that was going to be
Yep.
like. So it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I was kind of, the only hiccup I had there was like, I saw this already in the Starfield Direct. Like, let's
Yeah.
go.
Well, there was a lot of that opening first couple hours. Now, I know they don't want to show much of the game beyond that, but not even looking at leaks and reviews, just from the Direct and piecing together from the Direct, you know what's going on in those first couple hours.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty extensively, not just seeing it, but knowing what's going on. I wasn't a big fan of that, but oh well.
Yeah. But going on from there, so, getting off, and of course, this is light spoilers. Obviously, I know a lot of you out there maybe have not played it yet. I'm going to try to keep it to a minimum. But, basically, you get off out of the mining company, and my first thoughts were, one, right off the bat, I thought the game looked beautiful. Now, as Eldon said, we are
Yes.
playing on PC, on some higher end equipment, but the first thing I noticed was the smoothness of it. There was, to me, based on old Bethesda characters, you didn't have that almost like that weird. Yeah, I think you said it best with a janky look.
Yeah,
I
that's the
thought they
word.
were very, yeah, I thought they were very fluid.
And the facial animations, you're talking about the graphics there. The graphics were big jump up, obviously, but even from the Direct, the facial animations were a huge jump from Fallout 4, right? And then even a big jump from the Direct, because at the Direct, they're like, okay, I mean, this is fine. It's a BGS game. We don't expect much from facial animations. But you talked to your first, I don't remember what your manager name is in the mining company. Lynn, yeah, but it opens up to her talking to you, and you're watching her face, and then I'm like, wow, this is impressive.
Oh yeah, yeah, I was very happy with that, and just the smoothness. I think initially, typical BGS game, right when it lets you walk, I knew what I was doing. The cues for where you were going, like, hey, go follow Lynn or go do this, were simple. just like every BGS game. So I saw a lot of the Fallout, a lot of the Elder Scrolls in that. And me
Yeah.
personally, that's what I expected, and that's what I'm happy with. For them to
Right.
change a formula, which I don't know how you could really change just following or looking for key points, but I thought they did that well. The graphics stood out to me, really did. But then the next thing that blew my mind for initial reaction, and people had said it, but I thought the combat was a lot more fun and a lot
Mm-hmm.
better, because in every other previous game, and I'll let you follow up on this, Eldon, I almost would play a sneak character just because I hated the
Right.
combat so much.
Yeah, so in BGS games in general, I play a sneak or high charisma to be able to talk my way out of a situation type of build, because it's not that I dislike the combat, which I'm not a big fan of, but it's also more of the fact that I'm not good at it. And like
Hmm.
in Fallout, I rely heavily on VATS, heavily on VATS. And in Starfield, there seems to be no VATS-like system for like shooting with your gun you're holding. Now, ship combat's
Yeah.
different story, but when you're on planet side, seems to be no VATS type of system, and I liked it. I think it's better than Fallout 4, but I understand, because there were some people out there saying, it's just like Fallout 4's, or, oh, no, it's a
Hmm.
big improvement. And honestly, having played it, I could see where both people are coming from. Like, it's an
Sure.
improvement, but it still feels like a Fallout 4 style gunplay. Big
Hmm.
improvement, but like in that vein of type of gunplay, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I think so far all I've got really is a like a pistol, like that first pistol you get, and
Hmm.
then a like an automatic rifle. And it is interesting to see how they feel different. Now I got a laser weapon. I haven't tested that yet, but they do feel very different. The gunplay
Oh yeah.
does feel really good, and it is fun. The AI when you're shooting them, it's way better on how they react to you
I
shooting them.
agree.
And then the occasional time when you're able to actually shoot their jetpack and the way they explode, that was all
Hmm.
satisfying.
One thing, I was on stream
Yeah.
last night and I really wanted to find a shotgun. Someone said it in the comments, and I didn't know the first place to look or if an enemy would have one. And I can't remember where I went, like on the opening combat mission or maybe the second combat mission, but I found the case
Mm-hmm.
in a room, and it had a shotgun in it.
Yeah.
And that brings me to I guess my kind of closing on the initial reactions was, it was what I expected, and the search for everything, and this is on the good side, was what I loved. I loved going into every room. I loved looking at everything, taking my time. Now I can see where some of the reviewers said that's overwhelming, and they obviously are
Mm-hmm.
way further along than we are, 100 hours, compared to two or three. But that's what I love about BGS games, me personally.
Right. And another thing that I loved about it and was blown away was the voice acting.
Hmm.
The voice acting, especially Barrett. Like, I instantly fell in love with
Oh
Barrett.
yeah.
Barrett's character and his sass and his personality coming through the voice acting. Because I mean, you play Fallout 4, Skyrim, any BGS game, and the voice acting's fine across the board is generally.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wow factor about it,
Sure.
right? It's just fine, and that's fine. That's not why you're playing it, right? It does the job, and it's competent at it,
Yep.
but it doesn't blow you away. This blew me away. Again, Barrett, and then I got the adoring fan, and his tone constantly was just great.
Yeah.
Was just great. But the voice acting, very much impressed, and in general, the interacting with NPCs,
Hmm.
especially like named storied NPCs that
Yeah.
have put a lot of polish in,
Yep.
so they see well, the way they look at you, the way they talk, the voice acting, all of that across the board,
Hmm.
knocked it out of the park. Really, really good. And that goes into the storytelling.
Yes.
The storytelling is incredible. Love it.
I'm very loving it
I
too.
mean, when you look at it compared to previous BGS games, it very much feels next generation.
Sure.
Feels way more immersive, way better storytelling than
I
anything
agree.
they had done yet.
I agree.
Now, from what's gathered, again, because we're only a couple hours in, it's not as in depth in choices and stuff as older BGS games.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that Now you have more. I'm talking about the presentation and how they present it to you is incredible.
Mhm.
Is incredible. But with the, what's interesting, I mentioned about the facial animations earlier. One of the things interesting about the facial animations, I don't remember. Some reviewer said this, and you can definitely see it walking around the world. You basically have 3 tiers of NPCs, and basically their amount of polish on it. Now I can kind of more so notice 2 levels, and I'll say it in my 2 levels, which is named NPCs versus unnamed
Yep.
NPCs. So if you go into a city, it'll just say settler or
Yeah.
something like
Or
that.
citizen
The
like that.
named NPCs have a citizen. That's what it was.
Mhm.
The named NPCs will have a good amount of polish to their face.
Sure.
The unnamed, talk about janky.
Yeah.
That looks. Ugh. Now I had the settings maxed out, slammed to ultra, and then I tweaked a couple things, like I turned off motion blur. I'm not a big fan of motion blur.
Mhm.
Some things like that. But I don't know, Steve-O, if you tried to anything in photo mode, but I did.
I did not. No.
And okay, so my experience is that for some reason they make your face in photo mode half the time look as bad as those unnamed NPCs.
I wonder why.
It made it difficult to take really good photos, because you can take photos and that becomes your loading screen. It's really, really cool.
Oh, okay, like in
it
Fallout
cycles
4.
through the photos you take as
Yeah.
your loading screen.
Or Fallout 76.
Right.
Fallout
I
76
didn't know they
that.
did that in
No,
Fallout 4.
76, sorry.
Yeah, 76.
Yeah.
There it is. There's. I was about to say, wow, I have that many hours in Fallout 4. I don't remember that. Fallout 76. Yeah, just like Fallout 76. And it's really cool. I like that. But then, you got to, all right, I got to take a picture at a different place or a different time because my face looks
Mhm.
bad. So you got to deal with that. But, talking about the kind of the negative side of facial animations brings me to something, Steve-O, you talked about briefly. Now that you kind of covered the positive things that you liked, and I've
Mhm.
covered the positive things, this is kind of in the middle that transitions us to kind of the more negative things.
Mhm.
And that is the overwhelming nature of it. So it's a good thing that Bethesda doesn't hold your hand in it, right? Because games these days have too much of a tendency to overly hold your hand and
Oh, yeah.
just baby step you like you're 5 years old through it. And I appreciate that. Having said that, what they do is they try to teach you all the systems within less than like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it gets very overwhelming, and at times not in a fun way. I need to take a break from this because this is just too much. Because light spoilers, not really, because we've kind of seen and been able to piece this off from the direct. But you leave with the ship. They teach you the space combat and how to fly in space.
Mhm.
They don't really give you, in my opinion, enough time to learn it, and they throw it all at you at once.
Yeah.
Then they drop you on Crete to go take care of this and to experience mining and scanning, and then they put you in your first real like dungeon, quote unquote, that you can start looting things with, and it's very, very dark and it's difficult to see, and that whole time period was very just overwhelming to me, and like I said, not necessarily in a good way.
Mhm.
And so it's just, I see what some of the initial leaks came out saying, that it's those first few hours, they just throw everything at
Yeah.
you and it's overwhelming, because it very, very much is, because there are a lot of systems. And so I would suggest, one of the biggest tips I would give somebody starting Starfield for the first time is just focus on the story for the first handful of hours. Whether that's the main story, a side story, any questing, focus on that for the first handful of hours. Because I went in, and when I went into Crete, I started playing like I do Fallout 4, where I'm trying to scavenge everything and gather everything.
Yeah.
For one, your inventory fills up way, 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 way faster than Fallout
Yes.
4.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because stuff weighs more. So when you go into Crete, when you're playing there first, the only things I would really loot if I were you is the guns, ammo, armor type of clothing,
Mhm.
and food. Any type of like scrap, things you can scrap, leave it for now.
Yeah.
Just leave it, because your inventory is going to fill up way too fast and you're not going to know what to do with it. And then I tried, by the time I got to Constellation, I tried getting into crafting and resource, and I'm going, I don't understand, like, because then there are whole sections of the game they don't really explain.
Yeah.
So it's really, like I said, just focus on the story.
Hmm.
Don't try to do crafting, research, outpost, shipbuilding. Other than, I mean, I went in the shipbuilding and just moved a couple things around, but do the story. Like we said, we're 2, maybe 3 hours in at the most
not very
solid
much.
gameplay, and so I can't say this definitively, but I'd say probably focus on just story
Hmm.
or storied quest for 10 hours. That's my plan.
Yeah. Well, I think even like Pete Hines and those guys, when they kept making the reference, like the game doesn't really start till after the main story's done. And just a little bit I played, I can almost see that because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
You probably need to finish that main story to get whether it's adaptive things like maybe the game teaches you later. One thing you're talking about crafting that threw me off, and I didn't dive into it much, but I was at a crafting station I'd found, and I'd picked up everything, staplers, wrenches, whatever I could find, because I'm thinking,
Right.
oh,
I was doing the same
I
thing.
got to break those down, but I didn't even see an option to break those down on the crafting table that I was on, which maybe it's the wrong crafting table, but I couldn't find it. I don't know if you
I
could.
was at a crafting table too, and I had some extra guns, and you can't break the guns down.
Yeah.
I went to a weapons workbench. You can't break the guns down. So I was just like, okay, I guess I sell extra guns now, because I was keeping as many guns as I could hold to break it down for scrap, or maybe that would help with learning weapon mods. I didn't know, but I decided to hold on to them, and knowing that they're just for selling.
Yeah. I still feel like somewhere down the road, and we may even revisit this in another episode, that you've got to be able to break down stuff somehow, because why else would they put all that stuff for you to pick up? The cups, the wrenches, there's got to be a way for us to use them somehow.
Yeah.
But again, we're so early in it, it's hard to say.
Yeah. And one of the things that I couldn't figure out last night and since have found out is how to I knew how to access, like, be able to retrieve things from my ship's cargo hold, but be able to put things in there. I want to be able to put things in there. And apparently somebody said that you do that while in the cockpit.
Yes.
Again,
I found it out this morning.
Played it since I read that. And so you can put your inventory in the cargo hold while in the cockpit.
Yep. So essentially, when you get up from your seat, from flying, somehow this came up as an activity for me. That's the only reason I even found out. It said investigate your ship's cargo hold. I don't even know how I got it. So you get up, and literally you can do it without the quest, but you get up, and when you turn around and you're leaving, on the right side, there's it looks like a big green pad. And if you hover over it, it'll say ship cargo. You go in, and it holds like 450 is the weight. And it's got stuff in it already. It's got minerals and stuff too already in it. So
you got me wanting to boot up the game right now, because I was looking for the inside, because I knew there had to be a spot where I could click, and that was my ship's inventory. I couldn't find it. It was frustrating, just like the weapon wheel. That took me forever to figure out.
That did too.
And finally I was in, because going in and out of all those menus, and that's one of the things I'm about to get into, was really annoying, just to switch to the mining laser or the manual weapon. And finally I was just looking at that weapons, and I looked down at the bottom and said favorite. I was like,
there it is.
It's gotta be it. And I clicked it, and I was like, sure enough, there it is. Finally. Because I was in the middle of Crete, and that's what I was saying. The overwhelming nature, I was trying to figure out stuff like that. While being thrown stuff they were showing me, but then there was tons of stuff they weren't, and I was trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. Whew.
Yep, for sure. But I completely agree with you on those things.
Yeah, now looking, we both have some things that we kind of think are negative, because I just off of 3 hours, just off of the initial experience, I wouldn't really give it 10 out of 10 stars, right? Really great, like it, but there are definitely some things I find that I dislike or annoying. Again, this is only like 3 hours of gameplay, so it's not like deep character systems, deep things. But one of the things that I found annoying was the map system, specifically while you're planet side. I know a few people said that in like the reviews and stuff, and for the most part, it didn't bother me too much. Although when you're in cities, right, you're in a populated area, the map still just shows the planet. It does not show that you are in a city. It does not reflect anything other than just the planet's like elevation. That's annoying. And then so I didn't get very far past first getting to Constellation. Once you get there, the main quest continues, and I was in the middle of that. The main quest that you continue once you get there. So I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. And that involves you end up going to basically a dungeon, which is a facility that you have a load-in instance, and then you're got enemies. You're trying to get to a place, and it is kind of a bit of a maze there, right? Typical BGS fashion. The dungeons can be confusing. But I started running low on health packs, and I couldn't heal anymore, but I was still having to be in firefights. So I got the thing I came there for, I retrieved it, and I needed to sneak out. The thing was, I couldn't figure out where I was going, and there was no map to help assist me. I had to just slowly wander around sneaking until, oh, okay, this is where I came in at.
Yeah.
Okay, now I can leave. And so that was really annoying to not have a proper map, which is weird because literally every other BGS game, I think even Morrowind, I've not played any Morrowind, but Oblivion, Fallout 3, Skyrim, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, all had maps that were okay.
Yep.
I understand what I'm looking at and where I'm at, and Starfield just doesn't have that.
Yep, you're right. It's funny too. Like,
what did you think about that?
I did find out, and this helped me only because I couldn't figure out where to, after I defeated said dungeon, you could say, I couldn't figure out where to leave at. Kind of the same scenario with you. No, this was a benefit because if you had the marker marked, like where you had to leave, if you tap the scanner button,
You're talking about on Crete, aren't you?
I think so. And it would show me the lines if you hit the scanner button. So that helped. But you're right. If I needed to back up, or there was one point where I died and I'd picked something up, but I didn't save it. And I was like, all right, I want to go back and get that because it was like a legendary item. And when I loaded in, I couldn't remember where that was. I was like, where did I find that at? So definitely, I see your point there. And I think something else, you just said it, and I wanted to bring light of it. The review, if I had to review it, I want to come back and revisit this down the road when I've completed the main story. But if I had to review it right now, just on the lack of, and this is coming from a BGS super fan like you, Elton. It's not like I'm not biased on this. Others think you might be, but right now I would probably give it an 8.5 out of 10 if I did a 10, only because I haven't experienced everything, obviously, or even a fraction of things. But I think you made great points. They don't really, for an all new IP, yes, a lot of similarities to Skyrim and everything, but all new IP, I feel like they just said, hey, they'll figure it out. It's Bethesda game. And I don't think they should have done that. That's me personally.
Right. I disagree. I mean, I agree with you. And 8.5, as I was sitting here and you were saying that, I was like 8, 9, 8, 9. And then you said 8.5. I was like, yeah, I agree with that. And, they drop you in. And I want to say that for the good, the bad, and the ugly, this is a BGS game. Do not expect anything else but an actual, like, how they make their games, jank and all, weird stuff and all. It is a BGS game through and through. Don't expect that they've made such improvements that it starts to feel like this. Nope. It's BGS for the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? I don't mean that in any kind of positive or negative way. That is a blanket statement. This is a BGS game through and through.
And I'm not saying at all that I'm on a negative side at all. 8.5 is very high in my review standards, and I am absolutely loving the game. Don't get me wrong. I am loving this game. I'm loving every little thing I find out about it. I just think there's a couple things that they could revisit and make better, or just explain a little better. But again, it may be 30 hours in and they'll finally tell you, okay, here's a secret here, which I tell you, I did find a tip. I don't know if you realize this, and it does help, but the fast travel or the travel system, I found out. So say if you mark the quest you're on, if you're in the missions tab on the bottom, if you go to that, if you hover, you just hit X for travel to, and it'll bring you automatically to the map to where you need to go, and you can hold down X and travel there. You could be in a building.
Right. I got you.
And I was like, okay, that's cool because there's a lot, I thought I had to go all the way outside or go to my ship, then travel.
Wait. Oh, so wait, you can fast travel from inside of a building?
Oh yeah, I kid you not, I was on Mars. I was in like the cantina thing, and I had to go. It was a side activity too. It wasn't even a main mission. I had to go find a book for this kid that I found in Mars, and it was on it was in Constellation, or I mean, or in New Atlantis. So I go. I wish I had it. I could pull it up here. Maybe I'll try to pull it up if I can. But you go in and you hover over the quest and make sure it's marked, and then right at the bottom it'll say X for mark or travel to, and it takes you, boom, zooms you out to the map where you're going, New Atlantis. Just hold X, travel right to it. Now you don't get right to the location you need to go, but you get to like right close to it,
the area.
So that did help me.
So that would have helped me. Yeah, that would have helped me in my dungeon that I said that I got turned around with after meeting Constellation and going on that first Constellation mission. Because then I would have just teleported out.
Now I don't know if you can do it with enemies around. I don't know that. It might limit you there.
Now, honestly, and I might have killed all the enemies. I don't know. I didn't want to find out because I was low on health and had no way to regenerate it.
Yeah.
But I find all of that just with the I have no idea what I was about to say, and I was trying to make it up. I was trying to find it as I was talking.
I threw too much at you. I threw too much at you there on the end. What it was.
But that's what I was saying. I like actually teleporting to the outside of my ship, and when I walk in, not saying cockpit and just coming in and walking through my ship.
I do too.
That still doesn't get old.
Yeah, I like
and I
that.
know I'm just a few hours in, and I probably will at some point start doing that. But what I'll tell you, in just a couple hours, there are a couple things that gets really old, in my opinion, very fast. Now, people complained about this with Fallout 4. I didn't have a problem with this in Fallout 4, but this is way worse to me in Starfield. And that is you press tab on the keyboard to go into your menu. That like animation to open it up takes a second or two. And then if you want to go into your inventory, so first of all, if you want to see, just for instance, how many credits you have to press tab to go into a menu, let that load. Then you have to click on inventory and let that load, like the animation of it. Then you can see how many credits. Now, then if you want to change your weapon, you have to click on that one. Now, if you want to go out of all of those, you can't just press escape and it goes out of the whole menu system. You press escape or tab and it goes to the previous one. And it does the animation. And it goes to the previous one and it does the animation. And then you go to the previous one, does the animation, and you're out. And doing that, constantly is very.
I noticed that on the planets,
on my nerves.
Like that drove me nuts on the planets too. Like you zoom out, then you zoom out, then you zoom out again. Like that got old pretty quick.
And looking at maps, you would just be wanting to look at one map, and then you had to look at other maps, and it was very annoying. So I could see myself very much downloading a mod that just cuts out that animation. That you just press it and it instantly shows you. Right, and then maybe a mod that you press and hold or press escape, and it jumps you out of all of the menus. But not only that, but you getting in and out of your chair, that is a little bit too long of an animation for me to be doing, because like I said, I want to walk through the ship, I want to get in my chair, but I don't want it to be this 5 to 7 long, animation. And I just found all of that, but mainly the menu settings. You can ask my wife. My wife was in here towards the end of the night watching me, and I was just like, oh, I just needed to check this really quick. I got this new item I wanted to see, but now I got to tab, click on this, let it load, or not let it animate, and then it's just like I wasted 20 seconds just going through menus when all I needed to do was see, oh, okay, this isn't a better gun than what I had. Let me go back to what I was doing. And so that is honestly my biggest annoyance of the game right now. And that is kind of grating on my nerves right now. I'm hoping I can get past it. But right now, in the state of it, it is just I have a hard time seeing past it, if that makes any sense.
Well, of course,
but
only time
I
will
know
tell.
Ultimately, and that's honestly probably the biggest reason that it is an 8.5 for me, because the lack of map and that map system is annoying and is more baffling to me. Like, they've had proper maps in every single one of their games. This isn't something new or different for them. And for them to just not have proper maps is weird. That's more baffling to me. And overwhelming nature, I know that's just the opening hours. So that I don't know.
I feel like we're going to
I would probably give it maybe a 9.3.
Okay, that's a good I could probably go higher, and I think I will go higher.
Yeah.
But I really got to get. I wanted to give an
Yeah.
initial review for, and this is bare bones. I mean, when you think in
Right.
the quality of 2 to 3 hours, that's like 0.01% of the time we'll probably take in this game. So I say that 8.5 loosely, but I am eager to revisit this, whether it's in a
Right.
couple weeks or a month with a score and saying, hey, you know what, it's went up, it's went down. Because I'm going to be fair. I expected perfection out of this. I hate to say that. I just so many years and so much went into it,
Yeah.
and maybe that's let me down a little bit because I shouldn't say let down because I'm not let down. I love the game. I'm having so much fun with it. I
Right.
think in my mind was processing something different, and the expectation swayed. Is all. But
Absolutely. Well, for me, the part that feels disappointing, not that I'm disappointed with the game, but the overwhelming nature really took me out of the excitement,
yeah,
and that was disappointment.
yep,
Disappointing. Because again, you start out on this, you touch the artifact, and again, all of this is stuff we've pretty much seen in direct.
sure,
You create your character, you go with your ship, and you go to Crete. So like literally in less than an hour, if you were going and playing undivided, you're
mm-hmm.
going in less than an hour, you are getting to things that are really, really
Oh
overwhelming.
yeah,
And that will take you out of the excitement and the fun of it
oh yeah,
just to be like, I have no idea what I'm doing. What
yep,
is all of this stuff?
absolutely,
I'm trying to learn these things, but they're not spending enough time explaining it or letting me get it down. And they're not telling me other things. And it's just,
yeah,
and I know I'm harping on this a lot, but again, this is our initial experiences.
sure.
This is just what we experienced in a few
That's
hours.
right. That's
So
right.
yeah.
That is right for sure.
So if you want to transfer us over to, we have a question
Oh,
from our
yep.
Patreon supporter,
And as
Falcor.
always, Falcor's got some awesome questions. And this one, we almost missed it. We were going
Yep.
through Discord, but I'm glad we found it. So he says,
Yep.
what are your first impressions of the game, and what are some criticisms that the reviewers got right and got wrong? And I think I'll let you
Yeah.
start out with this one, and I think it's a good question. Falcor, thank you as always.
Very good question. Especially the second half, because first impressions of the game is kind of what we've been talking about here, but the criticisms that reviewers got right and got wrong. So one of the things that several of the criticisms was the map and the inventory management system, and we've not talked much about inventory management system, but even just the initial, you run out of inventory so fast from just grabbing stuff because of how much stuff weighs. It is annoying. Both of those things I don't quite feel as strongly as some about the maps or lack thereof, but I definitely do agree to a point.
Mm-hmm.
And then the I can already tell the inventory management is going to be a nightmare. But one of the things I was really not upset, but I saw that was written, and I was like, okay. That I know I'm only 3 hours in, so I can't say this definitively, but just a few hours in, which on Steam it says I'm over 5 hours in, but of solid gameplay, probably like 3.
Yeah.
But at first when I saw, I was like, meh, whatever, that's just. But now playing, I'm like, that might be kind of fair. I'm kind of feeling like I'm seeing that, where the reviewer from IGN, well, I know I'm talking about IGN and kind of agreeing with what they're saying. But IGN, and he said that it takes, and if you hear it, watch his review, and I know you did it before I did, but he summarizes the end of the review as to why he gives it a 7 out of 10. That basically because it takes, I don't remember how many hours he said, 10, 20, 30, 40, just the first handful of hours of the game before it gets good.
Yeah.
And honestly, in these first few hours, I mean, I'm enjoying it, but I'm not in any kind of rhythm. I'm not any kind of, all right, I know what I'm doing, or this is, oh man, here I go. It's more of a, all right, and it's a constant, what is, and so because there's so many systems, even by itself for just that, it's going to take me probably 10 to 20 hours before I'm like, okay, I'm at a good rhythm. I'm feeling good. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. Because everything right now is still just like, I guess this is what I'm supposed to be doing, or I guess this is how I'm doing it. And that's not very fun to me in and of itself. So I actually kind of can see where that IGN reviewer is coming
Mhm.
from. But that's kind of what I would say on the criticisms about reviewers that they gave the game.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback off that because I think you said it well. The inventory system definitely needs some kind of uh, no, I wouldn't even say an overhaul per se, but just it needs something. I can't even tell you what it needs, but it needs to be better than what it is now. That's
Yeah.
one thing I can see that the critics got right, I think. And another thing they got right, you said it,
Yeah.
when he said, and the gentleman from IGN, about it takes so long to get the game going and get started, I can feel that now. And I don't mind per se at the moment, but that's 2 hours in. Who's to say 18, 19, 22 hours in? I'm like, okay, is this the rhythm it's going to be in the next 80 hours? So I can feel definitely on
Right.
that. And the generation we live in, we're a little older per se than kids in their 20s, obviously. And
It's slower for us to learn stuff.
right. But not even saying that. It's like kids want results quick. They really do. You look at
Right.
games like, and granted, these aren't open world games, but you look at games like God of War and Spider-Man. That I
Mhm.
guess Spider-Man's technically open world, but they are quick to the point. You go do the mission, the storyline progresses in a nice,
Right.
orderly
They're
fashion.
very simple
Hmm.
and streamlined.
Hmm.
This is going for just
The
throwing
long
you
haul
into doing
stuff.
whatever, and I appreciate that.
Hmm.
And honestly, I feel like if any game, and I hate to say this, if any game deserved an overly long intro that kind of walked you through everything, like a Fallout 3,
Hmm.
like an Oblivion, because Oblivion was notoriously long.
Oh yeah.
It was this game.
Yep.
It was this game. Now, I appreciate them getting you to that point to where now you can do whatever,
Yeah.
but it's like, well, wait, what is whatever? I'm kind of
Hmm.
confused on even the basics of going
Yeah.
around.
And even
I feel like they could have not handhold,
yeah.
but just done a longer
Well,
tutorial
even
area.
part of me thinks that like if they could have done something, and I'm not saying they haven't, maybe they do, but like you get a lot of games where the prologue or the tutorial essentially it might be 1-2 hours, if that, but then you get like that
Mm-hmm.
intro screen, like let's say I find an artifact, and that's when it's like, all right, are you ready to begin? And it zooms out and it says Starfield, almost like a movie entrance. That's when you've
Right.
done that prologue. You've done, okay, this is the tutorial. Now I'm off on my own. You never really get that feel. You come to the top of that mining camp,
Yeah.
you get a ship, and then they're like, here's the keys, good luck.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The step out moment of this of Starfield, if we've passed that first step out
Hmm.
moment, because it seems like when Todd Howard talks about 2 step out moments, the second one's going to be that end of the story, new game plus that we've heard about. I'm really,
Yeah.
really thinking so. That first step out moment is going to be, unless we haven't hit it, which I doubt. Then yeah, that was probably the weakest step out moment, because in Oblivion you get out of that dungeon and you're like, whoa, I
Yeah.
can see that mountain and can go
Yep.
there. Fallout 3, you grow up in this vault and you step out and
Hmm.
it's like, I'm outside, I'm out of this vault,
Yeah.
look at this big world. Skyrim, the same kind of thing. Like, they found a good rhythm
Hmm.
with that formula. They put you in a very confined space
Yeah.
for a long period of time, so that when you stepped out and saw everything, it was whoa. And then, Fallout 4, it was not as that same kind of step out
Yeah.
moment
It felt like Fallout
per
4, they're
se.
like,
I
hey,
mean, you
you
do
know what
have
to
the
do,
contrast.
just go. you know?
Right, and I think the step out moment was to see pre-war versus
Hmm.
post-war, and to have experienced
Yeah.
your neighborhood in pre-war, and then you come out, and that step out moment
Hmm.
is that post-war, seeing what it did. I think that was it. And then I don't really know what you could say about
Yeah.
Fallout 76 for this,
Yeah.
but this, yeah, you basically are like giving it, and you go. Is it the step out moment when you go outside? Is it when you go planet side? Is
Yeah.
it when you leave Constellation? When you go to I don't really know
Right.
where it is. So I think now that you mentioned, I did see a reviewer say something about that, and I can go along with that for
Yeah.
sure.
Hopefully we see something. Maybe
Yeah.
it'll click. Maybe we'll know it when we see it, but only time will tell on that, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yep.
that's my
Yep,
take
for
on what
sure.
the reviewers got right and wrong.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep, that's about mine too. Now, if you would like to hear more of this podcast extra content, in the extended episode, we'll be discussing our characters,
Hmm.
the direction we're going with our gameplay, and things like that. Then you can head on to Patreon to unlock the extended show.
Yep. And guys, as always, thank you so much. And until next time, this has been Steve-O.
and Eldon the Noble for Bethesda Gaming Saga. May your adventures be filled with Nuka-Cola
And never end with an arrow to the knee.